Being a pastor is a challenge, yes, but there are some perks to ministry. And we're going to talk about those perks today. 5 perks of ministry that just about every pastor loves. I love all of these. This is part of what just helps me enjoy being a pastor in the role of a pastor. And I think a lot of pastors will relate. So we're going to have a little fun on this episode and look at things through a positive lens. There's a lot of difficulties in churches. There's a lot of negativity out there. So let's just do an episode on encouraging pastors. How's that sound, Dad?
I like it. And these are encouraging.
So we have a sponsor for today, and we want to thank Tyndale for being a longtime sponsor of Church Answers, but they have a Go Bible, which is for kids. This is a life-changing Bible. It's packed with 600 focused and fun features, such as a full-color interior. That's always nice for kids. It's got kid-friendly detailed maps, tales of transformed people from the Bible. The Go Bible brings scripture to life in a fun and engaging way. I absolutely love this Bible. I think it's a great gift for, a kid maybe transitioning from preschool to elementary and first grade. They're learning to read. Maybe this is a Bible that, like, when they first start to read, you give to the family. Be a nice little gift. So good for kids ages 7 to 12. The Go Bible helps kids grow closer to Jesus and understand and apply God's word.
And what is that incredible URL that they have?
Yeah, we've been mentioning this. From a business, we talk about it from a business perspective. It's really good. I like that. kidsgobible.com. It's but a good business model. Tyndale, a very high integrity company, and they just do business so well. And they've recently moved to a nonprofit. They're now a nonprofit. But they still obviously sell things, but you can trust what they do. And they have good people there, and they want to put the best tools in the hands of churchgoers. This is a good Bible for kids. kidsgobible.com. We'll provide a link in the show notes as well, but kidsgobible.com. You got to go check it out. It's a good
Love it. I love it.
All right. So shepherding's tough. There's spiritual attacks. There's this tension of being a spiritual leader while also having to manage operations. Some days I feel like I'm walking people through their darkest valley as a shepherd, and then other days I'm dealing with air conditioners that are out. So there are cultural problems in a church. There are technical problems in a church. It's times like a business. At times, you're a counselor. You just ping pong all over the place. The managerial side of church life is a challenge, but there's also some good benefits. There's great benefits of being in ministry. We have 5 that we're going to talk about today. Dad, what resonates with you in all this? I'm curious. You were a pastor for 10, 15 years, something like that. You're an interim for even longer. But what did you enjoy about being a pastor?
The first one we have on here, flexible hours. This preceded the internet, obviously, so there was no digital communication that took place. There really wasn't much of a concept of work from anywhere unless you were a salesman or something of that nature. And so coming from the corporate world and into a world where I couldn't just say I'm going to work these hours, because there were certain things that were fixed that I had to do with the church, but I had a lot of flexibility. It didn't mean I worked fewer hours. Quite the contrary, I worked more hours, but many of those hours I could determine when I did certain things. One of the things that I really loved in 2 of the churches, finally got to this point where the day that I took off was typically a Friday, and I took that Friday off because you boys were in school and your mom and I could do things together. And I don't know if you can even believe this, but we went for a long time playing tennis together on Fridays.
I remember that.
Yeah,
I do remember that. And that you guys just started playing tennis. I can't play Erin, my wife, in tennis. I refuse to.
Should be June.
Well, I am superior to her in sports, and we're both highly competitive. And she doesn't listen to the show. If she heard me talking, she would smack me. But I am not good at. I'm good at a lot of sports. I am not good at tennis, and we are like really evenly matched. And I fear her beating me. So I'm not. I'm not going to play tennis. I can't let my wife beat me in something.
So I had three of your nephews at my house, Art's three sons, and they were trash talking terribly. I mean,
That
you're
is
an
the
old
Rainer love
man.
language.
You're an old man. We can beat you in ping pong now. Let's get the ping pong table up. And even the little one, James, was saying, "Nah, I can't do. I can't do." And they were going, and they're just going back and forth. And their grandma, their JoJo, thought they could. And so she said, "Thomas, I want you to play each of these grandchildren." Oh, he's just an old man. This is closest score was 21-6. My favorite. I kill them. And what was really cool was watching your mother be amazed at me, which hadn't happened in a long time. She was just saying, "You really are good at that." Yeah, I
Yeah, I
am.
mean, you were semi-professional ping pong player. Most
That's
people don't know
semi-professional.
that. I've
Well,
seen the trophies. You were an award-winning ping pong player. Let me just say that.
yeah. But I love beating my grandchildren. I mean, it's just like beating my children. I never let y'all win. If you won, you beat me.
I love the flexible hours as well, and that's the reason it's number one on the list. Now, this actually gets easier with technology. I work from home about 2.5 days a week.
Hmm.
So, I think that it's good to be in the office some, and you should never be in the office all the time because that means you're not doing ministry. But I find that you can really, as a pastor, perhaps more than any other job, you can really balance this whole work from home, flexible hours. Well, you can just find the balance with your hours. You do work more hours as a pastor.
Hmm.
In fact, when I got out of the corporate world, that was like this weird thing to me because I was a futures trader and the markets are open at very specific times. So you can't leave your desk when you're trading commodities, power and natural gas. You have to be ready at a moment's notice because the market can shift on you at any time. So I went from that, and granted, that was a crazy job looking back on it. Trading
I
futures.
remember.
Yeah, it was just a crazy job. Energy futures. But then I go to the church and it was very stressful. It was a very stressful job. I go to the church and it's like, you can just show up when you show up. Now, you can't abuse the privilege, and typically churches will find out if you do. But if you're more a morning person, you can start earlier. If you're more a night owl, you can start later. If you have a late night at the hospital, there's nothing wrong with sleeping in for an hour extra. Typically, I mean, so you do work more hours, but they're more flexible hours. And I find that part of the job enjoyable. If my wife needs me to pick up the kids from school for some reason, I can. As long as I know ahead of time. Sometimes she doesn't tell me ahead of time, but as long as I have a little notice, we,
I get
I'm
it.
talking
I
about
get
her a
it.
lot. She's a hardworking free spirit. Does that make sense? A hardworking free spirit.
That you described her perfectly. With a smile on her face all the time, just like your mom.
Oh yeah, best attitude on the planet about everything. So much credit to my wife. Um, you also have creative freedom. So I'm a pastor. I'm doing this podcast. I am able to. No, my church and I have worked out a co-vocational role for me, so I'm able to be president of Church Answers. I can write. We Pastor Devon is our outreach pastor. He used to be our student pastor. He's a hip hop producer. So he has creative freedom there. And a lot of times there's a there's a lot of overlap between ministry and what I'm creating. And it's hard to separate the two because I get a lot of my ideas from my own church. And one
And
of
you
the things that
apply a
we
lot of your ideas from what you learn at Church Answers to your church.
exactly, it goes both ways. So and I would highly recommend you do this. So we have in our personnel manual very clear language about intellectual property rights. And we have given all staff the ability to own the intellectual property that they create on church time. So if the church wants to sell my sermons, they can. If I want to sell my sermons, I can. No one's buying my sermons, but that's just an example. The church has full ownership of all creative endeavors that are done on church time with church resources, but so does the staff person. So it enables people, if, let's say, if I want, and I've done this, there are some paragraphs in my books that came from some sermons that I wrote. I was like, oh, I remember writing about, whatever I was writing about on a sermon. That would make a really good example in this book. Well, who owns that? Well, according to our own personnel manual, the church owns the intellectual rights. I own the intellectual rights. There's no payment. There's no back and forth with payment at all. We don't do that. But it means that I have permission and freedom to use creativity as I so choose. And it works out great. So, by the way, that's one of the questions that something like that got asked in Church Answer Central recently. And, what do you do about intellectual property? And I was able to answer that. So if you have questions like that, you should definitely become a member of Church Answers, because it gets you into Church Answers Central, where you can ask a question 24/7 and get
Hey,
answers.
let's put a link into Church Answers. The silver level is $9.97 a month, so there shouldn't be a financial barrier.
Yep. All right, third one on this. So flexible hours, love that. Creative freedom, love that. You also get to go on mission trips, and most churches don't count that as vacation time. I would say your church should not count that as vacation time. We give our staff the ability to go on a mission trip for up to 10 days a year.
Wow.
Not counted against their vacation time.
Wow.
Now we expect them to lead the trip, to be a key part of the trip. They can't just, go. But if they want to go on a mission trip, those days away do not count against them for their vacation time. So,
and as we are releasing this podcast, you are in India.
Yes.
So right now, yes, you are in India.
I am, assuming I get there. That's a long plane ride. Yes, I'm away for 10 days in India, training other pastors. You know what they're doing? You know what they're going through?
Let's see.
7 Basics of Belonging. So they have translated my book,
cool,
have reprinted it,
cool,
and be training several hundred pastors on the contents of 7 Basics of Belonging, which, if you don't have that book, you should pick it up. We'll put a link in the show notes.
It's a great book. It really is. Love it. So we got mission trips, and then let's get to the financial part of it. Housing allowance.
It's not controversial at all. Well, do you like how I put in parentheses and other tax benefits? Because obviously there's the Social Security exemption as well, which is even more controversial.
Yeah. Should you take it? Do you really fit the parameters to take it? That's Social Security. I would say the housing allowance, from a should you take it or not point of view, is a no-brainer, because Social Security has rules around it. So we're not going to even go there. But housing allowance,
I will if you want me to.
We're not going to go there. Housing allowance is the ubiquitous benefit for the pastors and others who are ordained or licensed or to similar status there. What is a housing allowance? It's not a deduction. It is a portion of your pay that you can say goes toward your house, and it is a non-reportable income, not just non-taxable, non-reportable. So let me just give you an example. Let's say that you make $60,000 a year as a pastor, and let's say that $15,000 a year is the cost of your house. That's probably low, but let's do it 20 so I can do it easy. 60 and 20. Okay, 20,000 is the cost of your house. We're going to give you some rules and regulations about that anyway. But what that means is your taxable income is now 40,000 instead of 60,000. You don't report the 20. That is the incredible thing about it. Now, we want all of you pastors to know that housing allowance has rules around it. There are 3 particular rules. I don't know if we need to go into that, Sam, but just simply to say that those rules are rules that should be abided by. Don't
absolutely
abuse those rules.
Talk to your accountant or tax professional, Make sure you get some professional advice on this as to how much housing allowance can I take, and those things like that. But there is a housing allowance available to pastors. By the way, it's not only pastors that can get this. There are some other professions that can. I want to say military and farming in certain cases uh, allow
Yeah,
for
and I
housing
don't know
allowance.
enough about those even to go into it. It's not limited to those in the ministry. There's reasons for it, historical reasons for it that we're not going to go into. And it almost went away, and then it didn't. So that's another story into itself. I recommend this short book. It's called "Housing Allowance for Ministers Made Easy" by Art Rayner. That is a
Are
good.
we promoting him again?
Well, do you know a better easy book
I don't,
on
but
housing allowance?
I
Okay,
wish I'd
Housing
written.
Allowance for Ministers Made Easy by Jess Rayner, but he didn't write it.
That's true. I wish I'd written it because it's actually a really good book.
It is a good book. So available, I'm looking at it on Amazon, Housing Allowance for Ministers. So that's just this little bitty book, and it's going to make it very clear to you what you should be counting. There are some pastors and other ministers who don't take advantage of the housing allowance. There's some, I hope not many, who abuse it knowingly, abusing it, and don't do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, most pastors are way underpaid.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, most pastors, the vast majority of pastors, are not abusing the system.
Right.
Most pastors can't because it's not like they've got 3 vacation homes that they lump into their housing allowance.
That used to be a debate too. What if you have two homes? Can you do both of them? No.
Yeah,
You have to declare one of them your primary home.
there are rulings on that now.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great benefit that you should take advantage of. There are other tax implications, such as Social Security exemption, which Dad has said we're not going to get into, but that would make for you know what? Art and I should get on a podcast and debate the Social Security exemption.
Because y'all are on one on each side.
We are. He would advise you differently than I would.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And both of you've gone
although
down the path that you would advise too, because it's a permanent decision.
it is a permanent decision, and I made it when I was making $50 a week as a bivocational pastor. So I didn't, when I made the decision, I was like, oh, this really doesn't matter one way or the other. I'm a bivocational pastor. Now that I'm full time, it has implications, greater implications being a full time pastor. And that form has also changed. If you watch the debate, if you are tuned into the debate, let me just say that the wording has changed in it over the years. So some people signed on with different expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So just it's a hotly debated topic, and maybe we could do a whole podcast, and maybe we could do because Art and I both get pretty heated about it. So
Yeah, well, all you three of you boys, if you believe in something, you can get pretty heated about it with the other one. Seen that
the
again and again.
the point here in terms of perks of ministry is that there are some tax advantages to pastors. You need to know what they are, and you need to take advantage of them. Dad, if there was I'm wearing a gray shirt right now. If there was a gray shirt tax deduction, you wear a gray shirt every Thursday and you get $5,000 off of your taxes. Guess what?
You'd be
I'd be
wearing it.
wearing a gray shirt every Thursday. You may say, these rules don't make sense. They're weird. I don't understand them. Why are they here? It's the rules. It just is the rules. You follow the rules. You have some tax advantages. You should do that. Now, there is a
But
long history with the housing allowance and especially the Social Security exemption that I don't even think the IRS knows exactly why some of this stuff is there. You talk to different agents, you get different answers. But that's not the point of this podcast.
well,
Take
one other thing that I'm
advantage.
just going to say briefly, and it's probably going to cloudy a lot of what we're talking about, but there's the issue of the pastor being duly employed. And what I mean by that, the pastor acts as self-employed and he acts as an employee. And that has usually negative implications because of Social Security. If you're paying in Social Security, but that's another story into itself. So just want to say that there are perks that are financial, but there's some aspects of pastoral ministry that it actually is not good tax-wise.
Flexible hours, creative freedom, get to go on mission trips. There are some tax advantages. Lastly, and this one's spiritual, but I'm glad we're talking about this. It's eternal significance.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
And maybe that should have been first before any of these.
well, I'm saving the best for last. I did this
I know,
intentionally.
but you asked me which I like the most. And I said, oh, flex hours. That's a lot more than seeing people go to heaven.
You know, I talk to a lot of business people, and I have a lot of business people in my church. And granted, they find eternal significance in what they do because they have a marketplace opportunity that I don't have because
Right.
I'm not working in the secular world. Um, but they have noted, many of these business leaders have noted, said, man, when you make a decision at the church, it's kind of a different thing than when I make a decision at my business,
That's true.
because there's a greater kingdom impact. And I'm not diminishing business people and what they do, because we need kingdom impact. We can't have everyone abandoning the business world or government, academia. Like, we need Christians in those places
Right.
and in those institutions. It's critically important. Kingdom of God relies on that. But they're right. I mean, my decision at the church, my outreach strategy at the church has quite an eternal significance that's just not the same as if you're making a revenue decision in a business.
So true.
And I think that there's a huge perk to being in ministry, and it's intangible. How do you even measure this? You can't. But you know, I get to go to bed knowing, okay, I'm making a difference in the kingdom of God. Like, the decisions I make are
That's so good.
hugely important to God's kingdom.
That's
I'll
so
add
good.
this one bonus thought.
Okay.
Family involvement is great in healthy churches. In unhealthy churches, the pastor's family can experience a lot of pain.
It's an extreme.
So,
it's one way or the other.
one of the perks of West Bradenton is how my family gets treated. Like, my kids are doing so well. They love their church. Dominic, especially, my youngest, he's like, I just love church. I just love church. I just love going to church. And I said that's a perk, but it's also one that not enough pastors get to experience because their families get treated.
It says a lot about Westby.
I'm very happy with how they treat my family, and it's undeserved. I mean, it's true grace the way they shower love upon my family, and without playing favorites or, goodness, if my kids are acting up, you better get on to them. Just the genuine nature of the church and how they regard the pastor's family. It's a very healthy situation, and when you have that, that is a huge perk of ministry, to see your children doing so well in the spiritual environment in which they should be growing up.
Love it. Well, a place where you can do well is called Church Answers University. Church Answers University, our sponsor for this episode, in addition to Tyndale. What is Church Answers University? It is a diploma granting institution for training in Christian ministry. It's for people who are lay people in the church. Maybe they may already have some type of education, but they want ministry training. It's for lay people. It's for pastors. It's for staff. It's for anybody that wants a different, innovative type of education that takes 6 to 7 months to get a full diploma. 10 courses, all books supplied, NLT translation Bible supplied, everything. You can get a diploma in Christian ministry. You can get a diploma in leadership. You can get a diploma in women's discipleship. You can get a diploma in worship ministry. 10 courses probably take 6 to 10 to 12 months. It's at your own pace, and it includes all these books, everything. And here's the cool thing about it. It's a $1,500 total tuition. Everything. 10 books, courses, everything.
Less than the cost of like one class in a college.
Probably, maybe even less than that. And we got some scholarships. And here's how we're going to do it. Write to this email account. We'll put it in the show notes, but you can write it down. CAU, that's like Church Answers University, CAU@churchanswers.com. And write that email again, CAU at churchanswers.com. Let me say that again, CAU at churchanswers.com. Say you want a scholarship. If they are available, you'll get a $500 scholarship. While they last, I was asking Matt, who's the dean of the university, how long will they last? I don't know. He said, I'm trying to get a handle on how many we have. But he said, if they write me, first come, first serve. And if they're gone, he'll have to tell them they're gone. So if you're interested or have people at your church, or you may have several at your church as a pastor, and you want to say, I want them to get this training, go to Church Answers University, look at it, see what you want to see on it. You can go to churchanswers.university to just see a whole lot about the institution. But if you want the scholarship, you need to email CAU at churchanswers.com. It's been a fun episode. It's been one about the perks and possible positive benefits of being a pastor or serving in a local church. And above all, as Sam indicated in that last point, eternal significance. We love what we're doing because we work with people like you who are making a difference eternally. See you in the next episode of Rainer on Leadership.